And so I just want to say it's these limits that we bump up against, whether we're talking about religious limits, philosophical limits, scientific limits. It's the unknown which makes us feel uncomfortable, and that's why we need these stories. That's why we need a sense of, oh, we know what's, I know what's going on. I know what happens after I die, because it's uncomfortable to not know anything, to have, or the worst thing, right, in someone's mind is to think, well, existence is meaningless, right? And by the way, my next video series is going to is going to dispel that fear of meaninglessness not having any value. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit here too. So, we have these eternal questions that science and religion are asking. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Those are the big questions that everyone wants the answers to. And unfortunately, or actually I should say fortunately, because if we did have the answers, trust me, you wouldn't want the answers. Fortunately, there are no answers. There are no definitive answers. If you consult all the world's religions, the esoteric orders, mystery traditions, as well as the most brilliant scientific minds, at the core of it all, if they're being honest, they will tell you the same thing, which is they don't know. We can only hope to know enough to realize that we will never know these answers in the ultimate sense. Because if we did, life would indeed, at the very instant that we knew all the ultimate answers, it would cease to have any meaning at all. Which it's not to say that there aren't other levels of existence waiting for us to explore, because that seems to be the case. And that's what this book, The Master Game, is all about, by the way. I've got that one here. So this guy, I believe Robert de Ropp, came from the Netherlands, and then he settled in California in the 60s. And this book is this book explains like levels of awareness, as like your inner spirit as being like a house or really a mansion, and that there's unexplored rooms. There's aspects of your spiritual self that you have not explored. They're like rooms that you haven't been into, and you inhabit this gigantic mansion, and most people have only been in, a handful of these rooms, but there's all these other rooms or levels to your existence waiting for you to explore, should you ever explore them. And so the Master Game it doesn't give ultimate answers. It hints at the nature of reality, which all of the esoteric works of any relevance do hint, and by the way, they're all pointing in the same direction, and I'll hint at what that is here a little bit later. But this book, The Master Game, fantastic book, highly recommended. I would say this was, I don't know, maybe intermediate to advanced level book there. But if you're interested and you can get into it as a beginner, have at it. There's no wrong or right way to start. Just start reading these books. Even if they're, like I said, I was reading in my 20s, I was reading books that are way above my head, but I kept persisting, I kept reading, and I kept at it. And eventually things started clicking. So this Master Game kind of, it's like this, it's like life is this game that never ends. It's operating on different levels in different rooms simultaneously. It's a very interesting read, and it touches on a lot of important occult concepts. So check that one out. Okay. Now, a guide for the perplexed. This is a fairly recent edition. Where are my glasses at? I don't have them here. So I have some reading glasses somewhere, but I guess I'm just going to have to wing it. So E.F. Schumacher, right from the first page, he has the first chapter is on philosophical maps, and he's in Leningrad. and he's looking at a map at a train station, trying to navigate around in Leningrad, and trying to find a place. I think he's trying to find I'm not quite sure what he's trying to find, but he realizes that he makes this profound realization that because they didn't have any churches on the map in Leningrad, he makes this connection that, well, gosh, university never prepared me. It gave me a map for life, sort of, but it left a lot of important things off of the map. Just like in Leningrad, they left the churches off the map because they didn't consider those places of any relevance. And I forget the exact reason why, but you can read the book and find out. But this is a fantastic book. It's a short read. And like I said, this isn't like, we're not talking about Levi or Alice Bailey. We're not talking about Rudolf Steiner or any other classic occult author. But and actually, Schumacher is an economist. But this is a fantastic book. It's got some very spiritual, esoteric themes in it, and I would consider this a very good starting point if you're interested in any kind of occult reading. Okay, so next one is The Hero Within. Now, in lieu of being able to find any Joseph Campbell books that I have laying around the house, I'm going to mention The Hero Within. It's kind of along the same lines. It's by Carol Pearson. And so if you're interested in the psychological aspects of occultism and the associated archetypes, they're on the book here. You've got the 6 archetypes: the wanderer, the martyr, the warrior, the innocent, the orphan, and the magician. Now, I don't 100% buy into everything in this book, but I think it's a fantastic starting point. Even better if you can, you find The Hero with 1,000 Faces from Joseph Campbell. That's also along these lines. I would probably pick that up. But this one is a good pickup as well, The Hero Within. This book really helped me with understanding the Silent Hill archetypes and that kind of thing. This really gets into these archetypal characters. And these aren't necessarily just story characters, of course. These are archetypes for man and woman, how you navigate relationships, how men can embody the feminine spirit, and how women can do the same, vice versa. So there's a lot to be learned here in a book like this. So this is a good book. Okay, next one. Now, this one, I think the last this is the KYBALION. This is a fantastic book. I looked around and I couldn't find the darn thing. I'm gonna have to buy another copy. I think I gave away my last copy, and it's the kind of book that you really want to just. It's such a special book. It's the kind of thing I just want to share with everyone. And so I've bought in multiple copies over the years, and when I feel like someone is going to benefit from it, I'll just give them a copy of the book in my personal life. So this is a great book. It came out during the New Thought movement, which was like in the early 1900s. The New Thought movement, people like Rudolf Steiner, Alice Bailey, I guess even Madame Blavatsky. In a way, it's the kind of book, it's very short. It's the kind of book you can read in an afternoon, and then you can just think about it for like decades and decades. And you can occasionally come back to it now and again and read it. It's basically it's a very concise description of what the Maharishis and the great sages over the course of human history, especially the ones from the East, have been able to intuit about our reality through deep levels of meditation and spiritual divination. There's the KYBALION it basically lays out the structure of reality, or how reality is constructed. And the first, there are 7 hermetic principles. The first principle is the principle of mentalism, which is this idea that, and to me it seems a reality. I mean, the more I go into this idea, and the more I look for practical examples of my life, the more it just grows and grows. But this idea of mentalism is that the very nature of reality, at its very core, is pure conscious awareness. It's all basically, at its root, it is just pure conscious awareness, and that is the most primary, or first and foremost, element of reality. And then physicality being an extension of that, coming from that. And so it's a very, this book is just incredible. Pick up a copy. Better yet, and don't, I was going to say, maybe not even order this, just go. Like, take your physical body to an esoteric bookstore, find one in your area, go there, look for they'll have multiple copies, any esoteric bookstore, or even, I would even think, a New Age bookstore. And there's lots and lots of bookstores like that. If you're in a town of any reasonable size, you should be able to find a bookstore that has at least a section on esotericism, if not the entire store. There's entire bookstores in my town where it's just esoteric books everywhere. So go and find yourself a copy in one of these stores, and you may meet someone who invariably may be able to, I don't know, maybe you'll be initiated. You never know. But find yourself a copy of the KYBALION. It's, I think of the KYBALION as kind of a Western New Thought way of describing the pure conscious awareness nature of reality. It's a beautiful book. And then, now let's go back more on the purely on the Western side. We have the all-time classic by Manly P. Hall, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. This thing's a monster. Just very thick book. This is a neat book because there are many different sections. You don't have to read it in order. In fact, I've had this book for probably 8 or 9 years now, and it's kind of like an encyclopedia, because it has different sections on different sort of disciplines and that sort of thing. At least I never got the sense that this book has to be read in order from cover to cover. There's all these different sections. There's a section on Hermeticism. There's I read this section on the what is it? The Eleusinian Mysteries. That was a far out read. There's many different areas here, and there's some beautiful illustrations in this book. There's a bunch of different color panels in here with some esoteric images. It's got a whole section on alchemy. Oh yeah. There's Freemasonry in here. There's a lot of different things. Here's Eliphas Levi, the Baphomet. This is kind of like a compendium. It's just a collection. This one's, so this part on the part with the Baphomet is ceremonial magic and sorcery. There's a whole section on that. So this book's an absolute treasure. I haven't read this entire book. I kind of jump from section to section over the years. It's just a good one to have around. It's a fantastic book to have around when you want to know more about one little certain area. There's the Rosicrucians are in here. This book has got quite a lot. So anyway, fantastic. And this is a book you'll be able to have for a lifetime and maybe give it to your kids or something too. So this is a great one. And then the last one, this is one I thought this one was interesting because I'm reading this one right now. I've been reading this off and on for a while. I'm about a third of the way through. The Kabbalah of Money, Jewish Insights on Giving, Owning, and Receiving. And I mentioned this book in case anyone new to occult topics thinks that this stuff doesn't have any practical value in your life. Well, you'd be wrong. Quite the opposite is true. Once you reach a certain level of understanding, everything in your life should take on a certain spiritual flavor, and you'll see practical results in your life. And I can't think of anything more spiritual than money. There's a transaction happening when we're talking about money, and we're talking about either buying, selling, some kind of transaction. It's a very spiritual enterprise if you really think about that. And so, this book has. I just finished a section on. There's this idea of nobody. So in any kind of transaction, one person can benefit, but the other person shouldn't lose. So you don't want to be in a situation where one person loses and one person wins. What you want, ideally, is that either both people win, or at the very least, one person gets what they need, but they don't lose, right? And so there's some very valuable concepts in here. And I'm just barely getting my head around how this is a very interesting way to see money and to see, and it talks a lot about, need and why, if someone is in need, and why it's important that if you, they're very Judeo-Christian ideas, really, giving to those in need, and that, at some point things come back to you when you give to others without expecting anything in return. You won't get, you may not get anything in return, and that's okay, especially if, you're not really supposed to expect it anyway. But then funny things start to happen where things come to you that you didn't expect because of what you did before. But it's a very interesting book, and there's some very beautiful ideas expressed in here. And these are very Judeo-Christian ideas, I would say, but they're great reminders. And I see so many things through kind of a spiritual lens, not a religious lens or anything like that, but I see things in a certain way that really, it's easier for me to digest something in a way that speaks to my entire being, not just my left brain practical intellect, but I want something that speaks to my intellect and my intuition. And so there's plenty of books out there that you can learn all sorts of things from, and where the author is sort of, their intuition is married to the intellect, and they have this unconscious understanding that indeed their intellect is the servant to the intuition and not the other way around. And they're not just, a left brain. They're not just an intellect, without any kind of intuition. And so in closing, I guess this is kind of maybe the first round of books. I may grab some more at some point, but hopefully that's a good starting place, Max. And this is a good starting place for some people that are looking to, especially, I mean, this is just a great one to get started in. I'd say this is all levels, the Secret Teachings of All Ages. This book is, this is a fantastic one. So I wouldn't hesitate to tell anyone who's either just getting into this stuff or who's been into this stuff for longer than I have to grab this book. Chances are, though, if you've been even into occult study for even a couple of years, you probably have this book already. But if you don't, do yourself a favor, go out and grab this one, because this is just a treasure trove. And also, I also should mention that there is a fair amount of information of recorded talks given by Manly P. Hall on YouTube. So, and I find that now some of the recording quality is not so great, but some of it's actually pretty decent. But I find that listening from the author's lips to my ears, or from them speaking and me listening, I find that I learn quite a lot, and it's very digestible that way as well. And plus, you can do chores and that kind of thing, and you can actually listen. Now, I don't know if the Secret Teachings of All Ages is on like audiobook or something. Probably is, but there's pluses and minuses to reading versus listening. But just remember one thing about listening is that listening to someone tell a story is more primary than to reading. And what I mean by that is, well, first, there's a twofold meaning there, at least. What I mean by that is that first, before we were reading and writing things down and that sort of thing, we were listening to stories from the village elder around the campfire, that sort of thing, right? We were listening to stories, and we were getting the emotion, we were getting the facial expressions, we were really, a good storyteller right in front of you takes you into another place. And so we miss a little bit of that in reading. Now, of course, with reading, your imagination can kind of soar, and you can kind of, so there's definitely some advantages there. But the other thing I think with listening is that you can listen and you can really sort of, there's a certain when I'm listening to an author speaking on a subject or reading their own book, I can kind of get a sense of what's important to them, what they're trying to say. I feel like a little bit better than I can if I were to read the exact same words, if that makes sense. So there's this thing that's very primal in human beings when it comes to listening to someone tell a story. So don't overlook that, because I think that's a very important thing. And to listen to Manly P. Hall talk about some of this, even just to listen to one of his talks and then maybe read the book, and then maybe you hear his voice or something. I don't know if that has value for you, but it certainly did for me, maybe because there's something about, for me personally, and I really enjoy to hear sounds, like whatever. I listen to sounds all day. I don't even listen to music. I'll listen to like just tones. I'll listen to birds sing, whatever. So maybe that's just my personal preference. But if that's your sort of thing too, check out Manly P. Hall on YouTube. He's got a lot of talks on there. So, okay, so that's it for me for this week. If you have any questions or comments or book recommendations, I'd love to see some of that. So let me know. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye now.